What we haven't heard yet is Sharon Moore's side of this. And he gets his say into this particular situation as well. And I do know that he felt like people had it in for him for an awful long time there while he was at Michigan. He felt like there were people who were out to get him. So all these things can all be true. It's possible that, yes, Michigan does have evidence that he had an inappropriate relationship with a staffer. And it could be that Sharon Moore is right, that people had it in for him. But the whole situation itself is just sad and tragic, because now we have a individual who had his professional life, his personal life completely upended. We have a school with a bunch of players who don't have a coach to turn to right now. We have a school in search of a program, a new coach to lead forth that program. There are a whole host of things that have transpired here that have led this to be a completely surreal, wild situation.
There are many moments we have seen over the past few years that just raise your eyebrows.
You saw me playing Solitaire and thought it was funny. Now, I'm calling you out. Download Solitaire Cash and prove you've got what it takes to beat my score.
That simply speaks to integrity being in question.
Another thing that came up during the week as this unfolded was the fact that Lane Kiffin called Nick, sought advice. Of course, former assistant for Coach Saban there. They, too, as many people know, share an agent in Jimmy Sexton. There are several of us who are represented by agents at CAA. That is not unusual.
Well, I think I get a lot of calls because some people view me maybe as a senior professional that has a lot of experience in the game after 50 years, 25 years as a head coach. So as a person, as a human being, you want to help everybody you can. You know, I'm kind of in this for the betterment of the game, really for the players. And coaches impact players. Administrators impact players. So anyone who calls me, whether it's a player, a coach, an administrator, I try to do the best I can to give them the best information to make the best decisions for the betterment of the game.
On the biggest sports network in the world, starting with Adam Schefter.
Maybe the locker room didn't like Harbaugh anymore, and maybe they known that there's been a rift. What is kind of your information on how we got to this point, and obviously what Harbaugh...
I don't think that information right there could be any more true, any less true. The players were coming into his office crying, hugging him, sending him goodbyes, calling him one by one. If they felt that way, why are Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely and all these players coming in, crying, hugging him, giving him these long, warm goodbyes? I'm not buying that.
He says recently fired head coach John Harbaugh said his goodbyes, and players like Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely even cried. Take it from the players themselves. Derrick Henry and Ronnie Stanley declined to give a resounding vote of confidence to John Harbaugh. Both would express their love for Harbaugh, but said they don't make that decision. In addition, one player summed it up as surprised but not shocked to ESPN's Jamison Hensley. The problem is we have seen the man that Adam Schefter is. For example, recall the Washington football team scandal, where we saw in leaked emails John Gruden's racism, misogyny, homophobia, and his pure hatred of black players kneeling. In those emails, we also learned that Schefter was communicating with Bruce Allen, the then president of that team. He would send the draft of an unpublished story that would go on ESPN.com to Allen for his approval. Please let me know if you see anything that should be added, challenged, tweaked. Adam Schefter wrote to Allen, "Thanks, Mr. Editor, for that and the trust. Plan to file this to ESPN at 6 a.m. Wow. Jamil Hill would even tweet, "I've been a journalist for over 2 decades now. I've never let a source proofread, preview, or edit any story. Majority of journalists I know have never done this either. That is a huge journalistic no-no. Young journalists, that is not how it's done ever." Pointer's Tom Jones put it like this: "To share an unpublished story with a source before it runs and to solicit suggestions on that story is way over the line journalistically. It cannot happen." In this case, Allen was the executive vice president / GM of an NFL team that was in a collective bargaining dispute with the players. In this case, that accuracy and fairness is being filtered through a source and someone who has a stake, I reiterate, a stake in the story. Jones adds, asking a source to clarify something is, of course, not only okay, but good journalism. That should be and can be done without showing the source what you wrote. But a reporter should never share the entire story and should never invite the source to offer something or be added, changed, or tweaked, as Schefter wrote. Another story that Adam Schefter would botch, former Minnesota Vikings running back Dalvin Cook and his case of DV. Schefter would tweet, Minnesota Vikings' running back Dalvin Cook is the victim of domestic abuse and extortion. There's pending litigation, according to his agent, Zach Hiller. The framing is atrocious, but it showed us who he serves. Those who feed him scoops. The accuser's attorney, Daniel Craig, would rebuke Schefter. ESPN's journalistic malpractice yesterday sends a painfully clear message to billions of girls and women around the world that they should be afraid to come forward because media companies like ESPN are more interested in protecting the powerful celebrities that make them money, rather than engaging in honest reporting and competent journalism. Craig said in a statement just that to USA Today. Schefter would acknowledge the shortcomings of his reporting during an appearance on SportsCenter. To be clear, he did not reach out to Craig or the alleged victim. Sports journalist Robert Klemko, formerly of Sports Illustrated's Monday Morning Quarterback, broke it down as follows. Dalvin Cook's agent wanted to get in front of a lawsuit filed in Minnesota alleging that Cook assaulted a former girlfriend, among other accusations. Then there's Troy Aikman, the #1 color commentator in the National Football League, alongside play-by-play man Joe Buck on Monday Night Football. Per Schefter himself, Aikman, a commentator for ESPN and a football analyst, was brought in as a consultant to help the Miami Dolphins in its search for a general manager. As Michael McCarthy wrote for Front Office Sports, even as a part-time assignment, Aikman's new gig is another indicator that conflict of interest concerns usually don't apply to the biggest sports TV personalities. So short-term, Aikman's consulting gig for the Finns will have zero impact on his work with ESPN, but down the road, who knows? The 59-year-old has basically said that he wants to run an NFL franchise. During an appearance on the Sports Business Radio podcast, he left the door open to eventually taking a front office job. Awful Announcing's Michael Grant wrote, Troy Aikman and ESPN might believe he can navigate this and remain objective. However, it's a conflict of interest. The impression that Aikman might not be as forthcoming with viewers because of his ties to one of the league's 32 franchises is a problem. And I agree. Then there's this.
Coach Saban kind of coached at another place in this conference, so I can't really say exactly what he said, but I'll say I think the world of Coach Saban, and I respect him, and so there's a reason I'm here.
With Lane Kiffin leaving Mississippi for Louisiana State University, he told Marty Smith, I talked to some mentors, Coach Pete Carroll, Coach Nick Saban, especially when Coach Carroll said, your dad would tell you to go, man, take the shot. Saban is a football analyst at the network. He at first did not disclose that he was discussing what Lane Kiffin could or should do. And he was serving basically in an advisor role to Kiffin to take the LSU job. He did all this behind the scenes until Lane Kiffin had his slip up in that introductory press conference. Stephen Godfrey of Yahoo Sports tweeted, it's time to seriously talk about the messaging apparatus Jimmy Sexton and CAA have created with Saban, ESPN, and a perch of friendly reporters. It's getting disgusting. Chris Vanini would also weigh in. Nick Saban privately encouraging Kiffin to take the LSU job, not disclosing that on TV, while saying Ole Miss should let him coach in the playoff. Is that going to be addressed? Then there's Ryan Clark, sticking with the Kiffin story.
As soon as BK was fired, like, that was my pick. Okay. Like, that was who I wanted. Had conversations with people at the school who were going to be decision makers. Bro, I would probably say once the process started, there wasn't a day I don't have like a text with Lane Kiffin. Like, I got more group chats with Lane. I got more group chats with Lane Kiffin than I do like my real homeboys. Like we got group chats with Lane, and it's like different groups of football players that played at LSU depending on what he wants to talk about. Okay. You know what I mean? So it's like we got like pockets. Like, oh, if it's this conversation, it's, you know, it might be Whitworth. If it's this conversation, it might be Swagoo. If it's this conversation, it might be Booger McFarland. And so we got like all these conversations on.
Let's not forget also Taylor Luan, a Michigan alum.
It's so imperative that Michigan gets the right guy in as fast as possible. Because if they take longer than January 2nd, Michigan is dangerously close to going through what Penn State has gone through for their coaching process.
It's extremely well said. So that all of that said, Who do you believe should be the next coach at Michigan?
Well, I think that the first name that's going to come up a lot is going to be Kalen DeBoer. I know he's a Midwest guy, Midwest ties. He's got a proven winning track record. But I would look to Matt Campbell, and the way I hear Josh Pate, who is the future commissioner of college football, Matt Campbell is a guy I would look how dry that ink is on that contract. Because if you look at Penn State and how they went across their whole coaching search, they hit about 7, 8, 9, 10 people. Matt, and I feel some type of way about Penn State and their process. And if I'm one of Michigan's top 3 calls, I'm listening to that call.
Hey, I appreciate you watching. Now, if you can, please do become a channel member by going to youtube.com/TYT Sports and clicking the join button. If that's too much for you, you can just go to tyt.com/join to become a member. It helps all of us out here at the Young Turks and keeps our network afloat. In addition, you could follow me on my socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate the love. Have a great day.